Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. We're going to show you a little bit what we got working and some of the projects we're about to start on. Stay tuned. We're going to be actually pulling the head off of a 96 to 2000 D16Y8 single cam VTEC Honda Civic. This motor is the same 96 all the way to 2000 in the D16Y8. So it's pretty much going to be the same setup for all those models. There will be some variations like the intake manifold on like the Y7s and the Y5s and all those different ones, but it's pretty similar. There'll be a few components that'll be a little bit different. All right, here we go. What the main goal is, we're gonna just get the head off, get it all apart enough to where we can just get the head out of here so we can get it to the machine shop. And while the head's at the machine shop, we can actually change the water pump and the timing belt and all that stuff in the meantime. So what you'll see today, we're just getting the head off with as least components as possible, and then we'll back up and take some more stuff off and clean it up, as we're waiting on the head and change the water pump and stuff. All right, stay with us. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is disconnect the battery cables. This is always a must right here. It will actually absolutely fry your engine if you touch some type of connector or wire or something. You can actually pull the intake, give you more room to work is the idea of what you're going for here. Unplug some sensors. So we're going to pull this air intake off, and I've already got the bolts out of it. And on this one, there's just one sensor that plugs in to the intake, and then you got your map sensor on top. So that's all you have to take off on your air box. There is, you can see there's a bolt here, location, and two up top. And yeah, that may be it. Yeah, so just the three. Okay, so I haven't drained the coolant or anything just yet. I usually have a system that I go. And so what I do next is, while it's just a little warm, I want to pull my exhaust bolts off. Now usually if there's a heat shield cover, it goes over the top of this, and I think it's got like 2 or 3 bolts on it. I didn't put it back on this one yet because I wasn't sure if the motor was going to be any good, and if I have to take it back off, I'd try to leave a few parts off if I can. I try to make it easier on myself if I go back and have to work on these things. So, all right, we're going to take the power steering bracket off. There's 3 bolts on this jewel. 1, 2, and 3. And we'll actually pull the line loose, the actual hose loose from the reservoir, and we may have a little leakage right here. All right. So we got something to catch our overflow if we lose some here, which we will. And you want to try to just push it back around and keep it up, because if you go down, it's going to continually leak. And now we just knock our belt off. And so when this goes back on, we can actually put the whole piece back on without any kind of issue. And keep in mind too, what we're doing, we're not actually going through like a standard procedure. You know, what we're doing today is gonna be the quick way of just getting the head off and getting it where you can get to the machine shop, and where you can always go back and dress it up and spend the extra time doing the other stuff, like your bells and hoses and brackets that you want to replace. Our goal today is merely get the head off of the engine. So you'll see that I bypass a few things, a few procedures as we're doing this, and that's, you know, if you're in a big hurry, or you know the machine shop's backed up and they're gonna have it for a few days, you've got time to work on it after you get the head to them. So your Hondas will actually have, I know it's hard to see, but at the bottom of the radiator, if I can get it just right, down there, it looks like a set of ears at the very, very, very bottom. What you're looking at is the actual drain piece, and from the top view. So where it's going to be, I can't reach down there and get it from here, but those set of ears are actually going to be, you twist those, and so where that location is right about where that radiator hose is, in the middle of your radiator. If you'll go straight down to the very, very bottom, down under there, that's where your water drain is going to live for your radiator. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to get our drain pan, and we're going to reach right here. We're going to turn that counterclockwise. And there come your coolant. And this is actually what it looks like. So that little deal there, and they have somewhere on the end, a lot of them will actually have a O-ring right there on the end, but this one evidently just pushes in and tapers out. It does have an O-ring of some sort, yeah. So that will actually go in and seal that. So if these are bad, you may have a problem with getting your radiator to seal back, because I've seen these where you go back in and try to tighten them back up and you can't get your radiator to stop leaking. Sometimes those seals will actually go bad. And keep in mind, this thing is plastic, so you don't have to go crazy tight. Snug it in there, and if it drips a little, tighten it a little more maybe. But if it won't stop and you're not comfortable turning anymore, you may want to try and replace the O-ring, or just get another one of these and just replace it. Maybe the easiest bet. You want to damage this before you damage the actual radiator. So now, one thing we deal with is this engine being an automatic, we will have transmission coolant lines that live down there. If we can get you where you can see them. All right, on your transmission coolant lines, I had some pliers, here we go. There will be two transmission coolant lines at the bottom of the radiator. Now you can pull the top where it meets up at the top, or you can actually pull it loose at the radiator itself. Whichever's easiest to get to, doesn't matter. Just whichever one works for you. And sometimes you have to get a hold of the actual piece and get it turned to where you can actually get a hold of it, because these are a pain. All right, so that's that one. All right. These things can be a pain. They're definitely a pain in the butt. So right here, if you can see, they make a specialty clamp pair of pliers. We don't have those. So I do actually have them somewhere, but for this purpose I don't. So when you pull those off, they should just pull right off. And let me get the other one. We should be good there. You always want to keep your drain pan handy, so that way you can catch your fluids if you can. Alright, so once you have that off, so we've drained it, we've took both transmission lines loose, we unhooked the 2 radiator hoses. So this thing just pulls up out of there. So this is your overflow for your radiator. And there's a plug to your fan switch on this side. And 10 millimeter, one of them on top, that's called your radiator stay. Take that off. One bolt, one 10 millimeter. And I always, if I can, I always try to put my bolts where they live so they don't get lost. And there we are. And there's the transmission lines where they actually attach. And right here is your location of your drain. So you can actually see your drain there. Now, we're going to take the distributor off. You pull your plug wires out. All right. And your distributor will be it'll have 3 bolts. It'll be a 12 wrench. Well, ours has 1. All right, so you will get a little bit of oil right here. What you can do, you can make you like a little piece to redirect your oil down past it. And there's a few plugs here too that you'll have to contend with. You try to direct your oil down to one side so you can catch it if you're working on a garage or a shop somewhere and you're trying to stay as clean as possible. And there's some plugs. You have your distributor plugs on top. Those guys are right here. There's on these, there's just one on them, but there's also your VTEC solenoid on these. So your VTEC will actually be mounted to your distributor too. So you will have to pull the wire off, and you will separate it because it'll come off of this head at some point. And there's a tab on the distributor, or on the distributor wire. One plug on these. On the 92 to 95, it's pretty much the same, but you end up with 2 plugs here. And then you just finish taking your bolt out, or bolts if you got more than one. So when you pull this distributor out, you will get some oil. And you can try to catch it and run it towards the front to, you know, catch it or whatever. It's not a ton, but to keep your shop clean. So that's the distributor. That was the easy one. All right, so now we've got the PCV piece for the valve cover. All right, so it's out. So we're good there. Okay, now on the head, on the back of the intake, on the intake itself, you will have these 12mm bolts right here. All right, these are painted to get, so what the goal is now is we got to get these loose, top and bottom, and we got to get them off. And not have to pull all this stuff off. A lot of times, and what I used to do is I would take all this stuff off, you know, I would just fly through it and try to knock it out. But I've learned if I can, if I have the tools, which I need a 12 that's not a ratchet wrench, I think is my issue. But you can get all these off, and you don't actually have to pull all this accessory stuff off. You can literally leave all that stuff on, and that makes for a lot less work. Is it easier this way? I don't know that it's any easier. It does shorten the amount of time I spend working on it right here though. So it does speed it up a little. And if I can get the right wrench that I need, if I can find an actual, that ain't gonna work. If I can find an actual boxed in wrench instead of this ratchet wrench, I should be able to get it off. Ow. And you want to use the ratchet wrench if you can at any possible area. And I will use a socket on the back, like with an extension from back in the very back. But this definitely shortens the amount of time you work on this thing. And like I say, you can always go back and spend more time dressing it up, cleaning it up. Go ahead and take the VTEC solenoid off here. Give us some more room to work on this side. And your VTEC solenoid has 3 bolts in it. May have to break out a wrench. Getting a little tight in there. And sometimes you have some room or some places you can't get all your tools in. You have to kind of shift through extensions, sockets, ratchets, that type of thing to get in some of these locations. I can get this boy in deal. There we go. All right, so we got the last 10 millimeter out of the VTEC solenoid. And this thing takes 3 10 millimeters that are roughly, I would say 2.5 inch. You get 3 of them, and it's got 2 plugs on it. That one definitely needs cleaned out. So yeah, that's your VTEC solenoid. Alright, with your VTEC solenoid off, we can continue on with this bolt here. And like I say, these are 12s. I'm gonna get a regular wrench instead of the ratchet wrench. Alright, so we got a standard, not a gear wrench type wrench this time, and it fits in these other places that the ratchet wrenches won't. You spin the 12s, and they're 12 millimeters all around. Trying to remember how there's 2, 4, 6, 8 or 10, I think, I can't remember. But they will, you can get corner to corner on across the top without having to go under it. You should be able to get to all that. Then you gotta get underneath here and hop these guys. I know there's one in the middle here. I'm thinking there's one, let's see. See if I can get to him this way. I think I can get to him down this way. I can't remember if I could or not. I don't think so. So, you're going to have to go in. I'm thinking I did this with the long ratchet the last time I did it. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've done these. You can never ever have too many extensions. And you want them that will lock, if at all possible. And this one doesn't. See how close we can get. Alright, only one of them doesn't lock, so. Alright, I'm thinking this is what we did the last time. So, alright, now it's time to take the valve cover off. So keep in mind, on the back, I took the plate off underneath the intake when I first swapped this motor out, but I haven't taken off. I took the exhaust off, I had the distributor out, and the transmission off, but this, I hadn't had the valve cover off, I hadn't had several of the other components, I hadn't taken any of that off before, so they're still super tight on this stuff. and the short ones are in the front. See, and the back ones are your longer ones. Okay. It's okay. All right, so you probably lose a little oil here, maybe. As you can see, that thing is nasty. So it's not gonna hurt to get into this motor at all. So doing a head gasket job on this motor is not gonna hurt it any. The front cover here, you're gonna have two 10 millimeters on the actual timing cover. You have to have a wrench, unless you have an air ratchet that'll fit in here. Shooting the videos, we don't use a lot of air. The compressor, it's on the other end of the building, but the air and the air ratchet, if there's a leak or anything, you'll actually hear it. But on this one, it's behind the strut tower, and there's not really a lot of room. And you can get a stubby ratchet in here. Or a short, shallow 10 millimeter socket. You might be able to get in this one. That's a little harder to get in here with it. I have no idea the condition of this timing belt. This one actually, I changed this engine out into this car. But again, I didn't change a valve cover gasket or anything. It just, I wanted to see if the motor was any good. And that's the style of bolts that you will have in these. And there'll be two in the top here. You have to pull your dipstick out to get to this one, your oil dipstick. It's right behind it on the front. All right, so now we get down to two 10 millimeters out right there. This will come off. And usually if there's a bunch of oil right in here, you can tell your cam seal's been leaking in this area. There's a little bit, but it's not any kind of buildup or anything. It actually doesn't look that bad inside this head. I'm actually surprised. It actually looks somewhat clean here. And this gasket was leaking, so I had planned on replacing it after I got it running. All right, so now we're getting down to the nitty gritty here. You got your head bolts now. That's the last thing we got left. And these things are a 14 6-point. This timing belt actually doesn't look bad at all. Gotta get a breaker bar. We'll just do this right here. Alright, so get them all loose. So then, you can smell that these things are burnt. For sure, that oil is burnt up. That ain't gonna. Why would you even try that? I don't know where my magnet is, so. Alright. So, a lot of times people don't reuse the head bolts. Again, I will sometimes. You just double washer them. That seems to work perfectly for me. All right, so now one more water line. So there we go. And right there appears to be, and this is just my opinion, here appears to be some issues where the water was going through. We have some of these breaks right here. What I had was coolant leaking into my combustion chambers. On the Hondas, that's easy to do because you have open water jackets on these things. So it's easy for water to transfer into your combustion chambers on these. You don't necessarily have to have oil in your water and that type of thing for it to happen. So that's just the quick way to take off your head if you're gonna do a head gasket job. While the head's at the machine shop, we can drop the pulley and the water pump and all that and change all that stuff and clean all this mess up in the meantime, and we don't have to take it all off right now. So, all right, so when I take my head to the machine shop, I take all the accessories off of it. I'll take the cam pulley, I'll take like your water neck, the timing, the rear cover, and any of the sensors on the head. I take all that stuff off because if your machinist, the way mine is, if he's got to take it off, he's going to charge you for it. I mean, it's not a lot, but it is some. And if you have several motors you take, you end up spending a little bit of money. So I do disassemble some stuff. I don't take any further than this because I want this clean too. And while he's got it, I'll just have him clean everything because he'll probably pull this off too. But I think it's only like 60 bucks is what we pay here to have a head pressure tested, cleaned, and milled flat. And that's all I need done on this one. We'll make sure it's not cracked or anything. We won't do a valve job or anything like that. Now, if he's got he'll be able to tell if there's a bad valve or whatever, but we pressure test, make sure it's not got crack, clean it, and just deck it and make sure it's flat. That's all I'm gonna do. That's all I ever do. If it's a finance car or I'm just fixing it, that's usually where I'm at with it. I don't do a valve job unless a customer specifically asks for that, or if it's an engine that I'm gonna build and I'm gonna make some power, so I'll do a valve job then, especially if it's got any kind of miles on it.